that Aunt Eva was, would you believe that Aunt Eva was shy? Would anybody believe that she was shy? Well, if she wasn't in her zone, advocating for social justice or racial justice or institutionalized racism, she would hardly say much at home or in public. She was not the first person to speak or ask questions. If someone approached her, and she would react or interact, but she was not a true extrovert. As a young person and child, while she was young, as a young child, her siblings would go out to play, but she would not. She would stay in her room, she would read books, and she would stay pretty much secluded. She was an avid reader. She loved books all throughout her life. In fact, she had an extensive library that we probably need to go through. She owned history books, novels, and she even read love stories. You wouldn't catch me reading a love story, but she read love stories. She was well stocked with books all the time. She was an information collector, reading multiple books at the same time, is where I get it from. Watched news on several different devices, TVs. She would have 3 TVs going, and there would be 3 different news stations on, and she would have them all making sound, and I don't know how she followed, but she did. Then she was off the island, living or traveling. She would solicit family members, and several of us, to collect published newspapers daily and weekly, because she wanted to make sure that if one forgot, the other had it. I don't know if it worked out, but after a while it drove us crazy. At the time, none of us truly appreciated this task. And eventually she went straight to the Royal Gazette and got them to hold them for her. She was an avid soap opera follower. She shared that with her sister. She recorded any time that she was out of the house. But one of the other things that you may not know about her is that she loved dogs. She's always loved dogs. She had bought her sister one of her first dogs, a walking dog. And of course that was a high-tech dog back then. I mean, it must have been 1940s or something. Is that long ago? She bought her niece, her first niece, all of her dogs. I think it was all of them, but at least she got her the first black dog that was a walking dog as well. She bought her small black family for the dollhouse. She did that. And anyway, she bought me several dolls, but she was an advocate of finding dolls that looked like us. She even invested in a black doll company that was designing black dolls in the U.S. And I was surprised about that, but she was involved with, she put her money where her mouth was, long and short of it. Now, although she was shy, she definitely was quick-witted, and she could be very smart with her mouth if she needed to. She was angry with one of us. But one of the things that I liked about her was that if she was wrong or she was thought about it and she was embarrassed about it, she would laugh at herself, like just fall out laughing at herself for being so silly or being so pedantic. But in any case, that was one of the things that I enjoyed about her most. She could laugh at herself. She was absolutely, in my eyes, and I think in our family's eyes, she was absolutely brave and courageous. And I'll tell you why. She was brought up in a Christian home, but not just any Christian home. She was brought up in a Brethren Christian home. And you know anything about Brethren, women were not speakers. They were set back, quiet, covered their head, and just sat in the pews. Well, around 17, 18, she lost her mother. And so just couraging through life at that time, to me, was brave. But she also went off to school, and there she was exposed to, other things. But of course, she had been experiencing discrimination here in Bermuda. And she became an outspoken person about racism and about equality and about, and she was speaking publicly. She wasn't, when I say speaking publicly, she may have been writing, but she also talked about it. And of course, fortunately for her, she had a father who thinker. He was encouraging his children to grow and be the best that they could be and to be a growth man. Although he was a Christian Brethren man, he has his own story. You know, he's an outstanding man in himself. So she's rooted well in outstanding character. But this was the 1940s and 1950s. You know, what black person is speaking out against racism at that time? And there were great consequences that she risked each time she did it, but not only that, she had a great price to pay. When she returned home, she didn't get the kinds of jobs that she was qualified for. I mean, she was a professor in Columbia University. She came back home and she could hardly get a position at all. And so she didn't stop speaking, and she should have, or could have, I would have. So to me, she was brave and courageous. What I didn't appreciate until later on in her life, but as I was grown, she was definitely, she couldn't help it. She just had to do it because she was called to. She was called to try to change and bring awareness for social justice, but not just that, to show that you can make changes and we can change together, we can reconcile. And that was the essence of what she spoke about. She couldn't help but do that. So I think that she was very brave. When I was young, I cowered behind her when there were people who spoke badly about her or spoke badly to her or felt that she was not a good person or that she was the worst thing that was walking our streets. And as a young child, I cowered behind that because I could not see how anybody could withstand that kind of dislike or hate. It was just overwhelming for me at that time. But for her, she stood up to it, regardless, and she was a shy person, which was the other amazing thing to me. But one of the nice things about her is that she was very adventurous and she was over-curious. She was just curious, right? She would try anything at least once. She was well-traveled, she was a world traveler, and she enjoyed exploring culture, new food. She loved art. Performing arts, fine arts, didn't matter. She just loved art. She invested in art and she went and viewed art wherever she traveled, art history, all those sorts of things. I remember the time we went on a family picnic and we were in the Dominican Republic. Now she's 82 years old at this point. She's just had a knee operation and we wanted to go on an excursion. And we went on this excursion that took us through this wilderness of trees. It took us all the way up this, mountainous area. And she's walking with a cane. The terrain is not level at all. And what I'm realizing is we're going up to this terrain and the idea is for us to jump over this fall and get thrown down the river. Well, I was not doing that. Okay, I just wasn't doing that. I don't know about my husband, but I was convincing him he wasn't going to do it either. However, it took us, honestly, 15 minutes to a half an hour to convince my Aunt Eva that she was not going. She was not going to jump. It was bad enough she walked with us there, but she was not going to jump. And we had to say, we definitely not jumping. Now, my husband probably would have convinced me to jump, but because I used Aunt Eva as an excuse, the three of us sat there, but she was not happy. I can assure you of that. Now, she's 80, you gotta remember, with a broken knee, but she's gonna jump. Not me. My mother at the time was 70. She jumped. I don't know why she did that, but anyway, she's still here, so. Another thing is that I had the pleasure of traveling with her to different excursions all throughout Europe. Jelani traveled with her as well. My mother traveled with we had the chance to. My Uncle Arthur traveled with her. She was a very well-traveled person. Anyway, on this time, this is when I learned that she was shy. We were doing a river cruise, and we were going throughout Europe. And every time it was a small cruise, lots of people. I mean, little people, but lots of people that we sat with. But she wouldn't speak to anybody. Like, she would comment, she would whisper to me and say, well, ask him about such and such. And what did he say? And I'm like, why are you not speaking? They're all interested in her. I mean, there were many interested in her. They went to dine and wine and dine out. It was like, and I'm like, I did not realize. That's when I learned she was shy. So I was her spokesperson. And of course, it flabbergasted me that she was so shy. The other thing about her is that she could cook. She could really cook. She cooked different things. I mean, she didn't cook like our family cooked. Our family, culture, we have a certain style of cooking. But she didn't cook like that. She cooked like places she had been, Africa. She had cooked places that she had been, France. And she would bring these dishes to our family gatherings, and we'd be looking at that and say, "Why? What's that?" We'll taste it, and it tastes good, right? But she liked to experiment with her meals and her ingredients, and she liked to share it. So it was nice. The other thing about her was at our family gathering, she definitely enjoyed her nieces and nephews. She didn't have any children of her own, but she actually treated us as if we were her children. She invested in us. She supported us. She listened to us. She really, really liked the babies. She had a lot of patience with them. They could run around on feet. She was happy. But not only that, one of the other things that I learned about her late on in life is that she was an investor. She invested in a lot of small businesses, a lot of small black businesses, a lot of black inventors, a lot of black ventures, a lot of small enterprises, small property enterprises. I was not aware of that until later on in life. I did know that she invested in me in my little small business that didn't do so well. I don't know how much return on her investment she made, but she definitely put her money where her belief was. And her belief was that we needed to support one another, we needed to demonstrate that we could advance by doing business, by becoming economically viable. The other thing is she hosted people at her house. You remember she's shy, right? But one of the people that she hosted one time as a tea party, she made me get them ready. First of all, I had to put the acceptance letter or invitation out. I can't remember which one it was. But one of the governors of Bermuda, she had entertained just her and him at her house for tea. Right? And then I'm getting prepared for this. I'm like, why are you inviting the governor? I think it was an invitation. Why are you inviting the governor to your house? And she said, well, why not? I said, well, I don't know, is he gonna come, or are you not concerned about what you're gonna speak to him about, or whatever? She said, no. And she entertained the governor. They seemed to have a good time. I was not there, so I didn't chaperone. But in any case, she did things like that, which I found was very intriguing. Interesting because, again, she was not a person who was an extrovert at all. She had routines in her life that she did, but visiting art galleries, art shows, and things of that nature. She was very much engaged, and that's all it's about. One of the other things that I liked about her, and that I miss about her greatly, is that I can run things across her, and I'm sure all of us could. We can say anything to her, and she would listen. She may not always agree. In fact, she probably might vehemently agree to some of the things that I was probably saying to her. But she listened, and she allowed me to express, even as a young child. Back in the day when I was a young child, children were meant to be seen, not heard, and I was a very outspoken person. But she allowed me to express myself without, sort of shutting me down. She may have thought a lot of things that I was saying was crazy. I would say I don't agree with a lot of the things that she may have been saying, maybe because I didn't understand, or maybe I was just totally against it. And she would still hear me, and she would either tell me that I haven't convinced her, remarked slightly, but I felt heard, and I think that she did that for a diverse people at different levels and on different occasions. But that was part of who she was. She made you feel heard. But I believe that she was one of the most misunderstood personalities in Bermuda. I think that she didn't hate white people. I think people thought that for a period of time, that she hated white people. She never hated white people. She wanted us all to be reconciled. She wanted us to understand where the differences were. The other was she was not political. Yes, she did have a political vote. She thought it was important to vote, and as you heard, she supported PRP, but she was supporting her brother as well. You know, he was PRP. And she believed in us exercising our right to vote. And she was a part of the suffrage. She was a period of women being able to vote and black people being able to vote despite the fact that they didn't have any land. But she was a supporter of the underdogs of our society. That's the essence of it. She wanted social justice and in particular racial justice. And she wanted to understand why it wasn't happening in Bermuda. And that's when she got involved with studying institutionalized racism. And I didn't, when she was first doing it and she was first started speaking of it, I didn't fully understand it until we sat and had some real talks about it. But she also then got educated about the institutionalized racism. She then got educated about the effects and the impact and also how to change it. You know, all that she was about was bringing reconciliation and change to Bermuda. But I'll tell you this, I believed she was loved. Aside from our family, I believe she was loved, and I think that she saw that before she passed away, which I think was what I'm happy about. I'm pleased that she realized that her work was not in vain, although she couldn't help but do her work. Her work was not totally in vain, and she saw that it was going to continue when she was not able herself to continue. There was a time her older sister was gravely sick, and my cousin shared this with me the other day. And she was living in New York at the time. I can't remember what year it was, but she came home to help her sister care for her brother-in-law and her niece. I'm not sure how well she did, but the heart was there. She cooked differently from my Aunt Ruth, but she certainly stopped what she was doing to come and help. She invested in her nieces and nephews both in time and money. She believed in us, and she took our family into account when she was considering major changes. Do you know she was about to get married at least 5 times? There were at least 5 opportunities for men to engage her, both black and white. That was the other surprising thing. But she listened to her sister or her brother or I don't know, somebody. She may have used them as an excuse, I don't know. But she tells me that at that time out there, they didn't approve of these gentlemen. They didn't think they were right for her, so she never did accept the proposals. In her later years, it was satisfying for us as her family that her life work was ultimately appreciated. I recall the last public appearance she made, and it was at the BIU Hall, and I think Kirk was doing it, and I'm not quite sure, I can't remember. She was on this panel, and she was being recognized, right? Her books were there, and she was on this panel, and she was going to be answering questions. This was a few months before she actually passed away. And during this time, just prior, she was frail, she was not speaking much, and whenever you asked her a question, she'll say, I don't know. So this invitation came in, and I shared it with her, and I asked her if she wanted to do it, and she said yes. So, it was probably about 3 weeks beforehand, and I kept on asking her, are you sure you want to do this? And she kept on saying yes, she wanted to do it. And I asked her even on the day, I asked her, well, do you know where you're going, and do you recognize what you have to do? And her words to me that day was, I don't know. And I was petrified, okay? I was truly petrified because I'm taking her to this place, and the only thing she's saying to me is, I don't know. You know, she's dressed, she looks nice, she's hardly able to walk. Anyway, she gets there, and she's on the stage, for, this is going to be a good hour and a bit, right? And I don't know how she's going to make out, and I'm sitting in front, and I'm watching her, and she's on the stage, at the podium, and she gives an introductory speech. I'm flabbergasted. She's giving this speech. She's then given an opportunity for others to ask her questions. Questions will come from all over the place, from all different people, from years back, from current, all in between. And I'm just saying to myself, well, how is she going to ask these questions? Well, let me tell you, she answered every single one. She remembered absolutely everything, and she give big answers, you know, whimsical answers. She laughed, she was engaged, she was alive. I was relieved. And then she signed books, and she felt loved, and I was pleased about that. And she gave love that day. So I was never more proud, and I was never more relieved. We truly know that she lived the life she was called to live. And I'm sure that there are others who are called to continue her works. I'm not one of them, maybe Ari is. But she lived her life fully. And I'm pleased to have people remember her.